the Trips and Global on Wheels podcast hour, the place to be to learn about the latest and greatest life stories from people who are doing incredible disability advocacy work. Jeremy Schmidt and Erik Neufeld, welcome to the Trips and Global on Wheels podcast hour.
Thanks so much. We're excited to be here.
Of course. Yeah. And so I'm going to read your bio so that our viewers are familiar with your backgrounds. So Erik Neufeld has an undergraduate degree in business administration and extensive experience in North Africa. As an owner, he is using this combination of experience and training to grow Morocco Accessible Travel Consultants. Part of this involves networking with Moroccan service providers to improve the Morocco travel experience. He has been actively involved in advocacy, speaking at the first Moroccan Disability Congress, as well as adapting restaurants, gas stations, and hotels all across Morocco to increase accessibility for tourists and Moroccans alike. Erik lives in Fez, Morocco with his wife and 4 kids. They love exploring Morocco together. So next, Jeremy Schmidt. Jeremy was trained as a doctor of physiotherapy at Regis University in Denver, Colorado. He has 10 years of experience in physiotherapy in the United States, including managing outpatient clinic in Colorado. As an owner of Morocco Accessible Travel Consultants, he advocates for accessibility by assessing and developing services all across Morocco. He consults with many local businesses, including hotels, restaurants, and suppliers throughout the country to find creative solutions for accessibility. He works to see Morocco become a place where family and friends can explore together in creative ways, regardless of limitations or abilities. He also works and lives in Fez, Morocco with his beautiful wife and 3 kids. Welcome both.
Thank you.
So we'll kickstart with our first question with what inspired you to purchase this accessible tourism company and build this business together?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. I had some friends that operated a travel agency just for general tours to Morocco. And they began exploring the idea of creating an accessible branch to that. However, they also realized that while just adding a branch to their business without a lot of experience was going to be extremely difficult. And so I had the opportunity to intern with that business for a year and then purchase the rights to the concept for an accessible travel company. So I had moved to Morocco in 2014, and Jeremy and I have been friends for more than 10 years. So he came and visited, and I tossed the idea around of, hey, you could participate and help me grow this business with your background in physical therapy.
Yeah, and for me, it just we were kind of thinking about making a change as a family, just the busyness of life, working long hours and commuting every day, and so we were already thinking about making a change. And when he kind of tossed that idea out there, just seemed really exciting to be able to still use the information and the training that I had from physical therapy school and the experience at the clinic to be able to use that to develop and do something that has not been done and do something that was completely unique in a country that is not necessarily bent towards accessibility, but to really kind of stretch the limits and push into a new horizon of what is possible. And so it just seemed like a really good fit for us. And so in 2015, we arrived. It was in August of 2015. And by 2016, we were up and running and learning Arabic and just pushing forward and trying to figure out how to do this in the most effective way. So yeah, it's been a really fun journey.
That's great. Well, it's certainly an important service and much needed, having traveled around Morocco recently. So I want to know a little bit more about your products. So I know you developed a contraption where people with disabilities and wheelchairs can ride on a camel. How many rides have you guys given up to date? Give us a little history of how that got inspired and developed.
Yeah, so we launched our first adapted camel ride in February of 2018. We've done more than 20 excursions for people since that time. So that's been just a really exciting kind of flagship product for us that that experience communicates what we're able to offer in terms of creative thinking and unique experiences in Morocco.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So I know your consultant company offers many different tours, transportation services, and equipment rentals. So as you may know, 70% of people with disabilities in the US are unemployed, and I imagine it to be not a whole lot better in Morocco.
Yeah.
Therefore, this means people with disabilities have limited purchasing power, as I was alluding to earlier. How
Yeah.
do your prices compare to equivalent product and services in regular travel service companies?
Yeah, so in terms of our prices, if you were to compare us, we would be compared to smaller travel agencies who are providing custom tours and typically have a English speaking representative on the ground for 24-hour emergency call services. And we are right on par with them for price when you talk about the general service. So an adapted Mercedes Vito and a 4-star tour experience is going to cost you the exact same price as a parallel business. Where it would increase is if you're going to require a 24-hour-a-day carer with you, that service would increase. One of the things that I will caveat is that where other travel agencies may be able to offer you a range from 3-star to 5-star deluxe, we're only able to offer 4-star and above because we cannot guarantee accessibility in 3-star accommodations. So that does put us in a higher price bracket, but in terms of the apples to apples comparison of cost, we are right on point with them, and for some of them we're actually even a couple of percent cheaper.
Okay, great. Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's spot on. That's we've done a lot of price comparison because for us, we don't want to just create a product that is so much out of the reach of people, that are within the normal market. We want people to be able to come and experience this community and experience this nation. And so we've worked really hard to look for creative options. And we've looked really hard of ways that we can make that an affordable experience for the people who need it to be affordable. And then we have things all the way up to luxury for the people who want to be lavished. And so, it is both and. We want to make sure that we are providing the people here with a workable rate that allows them to live and to be successful, to develop this country so that drivers are paid well, the guides are paid well. That's a good value, while also making it attainable for people to be able to travel this amazing country. So more than anything, we want to be able to provide an excellent service at a competitive rate. And I think, thankfully, we've been able to do that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so out of curiosity, how many customers do you guys get a year, and what kind of people? I'm assuming mobility disabilities for the most part.
Yeah, so we primarily focused on creating solutions for physical mobility impairments. However, we have done a few custom tours for vision impaired, and we're currently in the process of developing some tour options for developmental disabilities as well, in conjunction with some British and French agencies. And so we have provided, in 2019, we provided about between 50 and 60 unique services through our business.
Great. That's awesome. Erik, I know in your bio you wrote that you've been actively involved in advocacy speaking. at the first Moroccan Disability Congress, as well as adapting restaurants, gas stations, and hotels all across Morocco to increase accessibility for tourists and Moroccans alike. So my question is, how is disability advocacy in Morocco different from disability advocacy in America?
For me personally, I wasn't active in the U.S. in any advocacy for accessibility. However, I can speak to the situation here in Morocco to a certain extent. What's interesting for us is that there's advocacy that's moving forward through the economic sector, and then there's also advocacy that's moving forward in the nonprofit sector. And so what was really exciting about this Congress that we were attending was that I was invited to speak regarding the Anglophone market on accessibility in Morocco, and also because of the unique services that we've provided in terms of adaptive camel saddles being the first prototype of its kind that we know of. This was more trying to generate awareness for businesses that if you have accessible rooms, if you have a vehicle within your transportation fleet that can accommodate a wheelchair, there is a market for it. It is growing, and we can see that difference over the last 5 years. The market is just steadily growing, and there hasn't up to date been any concerted like unified effort at promoting this. And so this Congress was focused on going, how can we create an accessibility label that is respected globally in the same way that you have like an eco-friendly label. And so when travelers are looking, they can see that there is this eco-friendly label, and that helps them choose where they're going to travel, what services they're going to purchase. And in the same way, we're in the process of, together with other businesses in Morocco, creating an accessible label that will increase consumer confidence, and then also recognizing that in these earlier stages of developing accessibility in Morocco, as businesses, we're going to collaborate to a certain extent as opposed to just competing with each other, because when we collaborate, we're better able to serve a larger market. And so that's been really exciting. The King also has a big nonprofit initiative that has physical therapy centers and transportation.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. So Erik, I understand you have extensive understanding of the Arab culture. So can you share with us what the key features of the Arab culture are and that are different, especially from the American culture, and how we can bridge that gap and gain a deeper understanding through you?
For sure. I think that one thing that has been extremely important to understand is how communal Arab cultures are compared to how individualistic American and North American culture is, generally speaking. And so where this really comes into play is that where someone who is using a wheelchair, they feel this, that their wheelchair is an extension of their mobility. And so that's quite a personal item to touch, from what I understand. You don't just go and grab somebody's wheelchair and move them around, in the same way that none of us would walk up to somebody and grab their knees and like shove them over. But people don't necessarily think that way in Morocco. They're going, hey, I'm helping. And so one of the things that we do is with our drivers and with the different sites that we go to with our clients, we try to communicate to them the importance that the North American consumer places on their individualism and respecting that personal space. And at the same time, we also communicate to our clients going, if you have certain comfort levels that you want to be respected, please also communicate those. Because when a Moroccan interacts with you, they're thinking from a communal lens, where anybody with a disability, like, I'm happy to lift them onto my back and carry them up the stairs, which for us, like in a business setting, certainly, but even in a home setting, in America, we would just be shocked at, going like, no, you just don't pick somebody up like that. And so that's one of the pieces that we've really worked at. The other thing that I would caution people against when looking for accessible options in Morocco is that because of this community mindset, a lot of these guest houses, bed and breakfasts that are on TripAdvisor, when they're asked, are you accessible? Like, do you have access? They will check yes. And they even, some of them understand what the question is asking. They understand that this is referring to people who have some form of disability. However, they go, it's no problem. I'll carry them. I'll help them to use the bathroom. I'll do all of these things because I'll treat them like my family member. And for an American to understand the amount of value and honor that they are communicating in that, I think would be completely missed. At the same time, I can completely understand how somebody from New York City or from, Tulsa, Oklahoma, who's going, this is the framework that I have for accessibility, goes, TripAdvisor, this person has filled out that we're accessible. I'm going to go there. You travel to Marrakesh. From Marrakesh, it's an okay hotel, fairly accessible. Then you cross the mountains into the Sahara and you come to this place. You're hours from nowhere. And the width of the bathroom door is, I kid you not, 1.5 feet. That's 50 centimeters. Like, my shoulders can barely fit through that. You almost have to turn sideways to get through that. And that leaves you in a really difficult position. Mm-hmm. So understanding those two different cultural perspectives of the individual and the community, those are both important cultural elements, but drastically different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so crucial. It's great to have somebody to understand that. I was going around Morocco, as I shared with you guys earlier, went to Marrakesh, Casablanca, and Chefchaouen, the Blue City.
Yes.
And some of the pasta, I forget what I think it was Marrakesh, and there was like a step going into the bathroom and then another step going into the shower, and the shower was obviously not accessible and super narrow. And I think I always book ones that say they're accessible, and 90% of the time I do hostels, so I do like budget-friendly travel, and 90% of the time it's not ADA. It's not even minimal accessible. Anyway, so that's really good to know the different perspectives. So the next question is for either of you. What are some common disabilities you see working in Morocco, and how have you tried to accommodate that with the services and products that you provide?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that a lot of travelers tend to be self-selecting in terms of what they're willing to engage with. And so for us, I would say our largest markets are US, Canadian, and Australian. And so people who are traveling all the way across the world, that's a pretty big challenge. I mean, East Coast US is not as bad, but like for some of these situations, you're looking at, 12 to 15-hour flights. And yeah, we hear of clients who try to hydrate less for those flights, and some other life hacks like that. But so primarily we tend to have clients who have lower body disabilities. And so I would say that as paraplegics, there is a bit more mobility that they come with. Almost everyone that comes and travels with us travels with some family member that is able to help them in some way. However, I will caveat, we've had a lady traveling solo from New Zealand. We've had a solo traveler from Portugal. So there are some people out there that we've been able to provide some very specified services for. But I would say it is well within your possibility to travel to Morocco with a power wheelchair and with quite severe mobility restrictions, and we can offer carers that have been professionally trained and can provide 24-hour-a-day service as well. And we can customize tours to certain parts of the country depending on your mobility level.
That's great.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been exciting for us is that really it's about expectations, and I think that's such a huge component to what we do. Is it's really about giving people the expectations of what and having their expectations as close to reality as possible. Yeah. Because there are some people who come who have a fairly low, perhaps a spinal cord injury, in the thoracic spine. They have a fair amount of mobility, but if their expectations are ADA standard, we're going to put them in a different type of hotel than somebody who, even though their ability level may be higher than someone who is quadriplegic. So we've had people who have said, I really, really, really want to make sure that I'm in accessible places. But their disability, at least from a medical standpoint, we could say, it's not a problem. We can take you to the desert. But they're saying, we really want to make sure we're in accessible places. So that's where we're going to put them in. And the same thing on the other end, we'd have people who are quadriplegic that are saying, I'm willing to be lifted. I'm willing to be put into a different, into a 4x4 and go out to the desert. I'm all in. There's as much as I can handle. And so we'll take somebody who is quadriplegic and we'll take them to the desert. And that's definitely possible. And we have adaptations to make that possible. I think the most important thing for us, it's probably one of our most vital tools, is our mobility information questionnaire. We send that to every single one of our clients, and we don't move forward without it, because if we don't have it, we don't know what people really want and what they really need in order to, in their eyes, make a trip successful. Because we may be able to complete something for someone, but if it's not in their eyes successful, then it's not successful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. And also very important services you're offering. So we're on our last couple questions for either of you. So what is the most wheelchair accessible city in Morocco in your opinion, and why is it so?
Yes, I like to, in some ways, compare Marrakesh to Las Vegas. It's sort of the entertainment capital of Morocco. However, it's in some ways it's distinct for sure, in that it's just the tourism capital. And so there is a hotel district that has it has textured pathways for vision impairments. It's got dropped curves all the way from the hotel district to the Manara Mall, which has a wide range of different restaurants and entertainment options there. Also access to the theater. And then finally, wheelchair access to one of the ancient Medina gates. So by far, the most adaptations have been done to Marrakesh. And so that is 100% where we would recommend that people travel to. A really good second destination is Agadir, just because it's flat in the same way that Marrakesh is flat, but it was, unfortunately, due to an earthquake in the 1960s, the whole city was rebuilt. So there isn't necessarily as much attention to dropped curbs and other adaptations like that, but the whole boardwalk in front of Atlantic Ocean is up to a lot of European beach destination standards.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that that Marrakesh is probably the best option for adaptations, and that it gives a really good mix between being able to be in a very accessible hotel district while also accessing the Medina, and even a lot of the places that you can go within the Medina, doing a Medina tour. There are accessible ways to go through the Medina. So I would say, and it's a very flat Medina, so that's very helpful. Fez is very different. It's built on a hill. And so even though we do have ways to get through Fez that are accessible, the challenges are inherently greater in a place like Fez. But Marrakesh, I would say, is probably our best in that regards.
Thank you. And so now we come to our last question, which is, what should travelers with disabilities prepare for and or pack before coming to Morocco?
I think the biggest thing for us is making sure that they are prepared for the standards not being exactly what we would expect in things like ADA or the European standards. So that's the biggest thing is just wrapping our heads around expectations, like we said before, the expectations versus reality. And so I think anytime that you're visiting another culture, learning what their expectations are. And so we've put a lot of those things on our website in order to try to go step by step. This is the city you're going to. These are the expectations of accessibility that you should expect for these different for these different locations. And so those are really the things that I think really make a difference is when you can be prepared prior to by getting the information. And so that's part of the reason why when we redid our website, we would put a lot of emphasis on looking at city by city, looking at what you would experience during those things. The other thing that I think is really important when thinking about accessibility and what to pack, we have a lot of our clients that will bring folding shower chairs, toilet chairs if they need. Making sure that you communicate those things while also realizing that a lot of those things, there's a bit of a challenge or a risk to putting them on an airplane. And so a lot of what we've tried to do is also create solutions for rentals and things like that, because if you can rent it for a reasonable price, then it perhaps wouldn't be as important to bring it. So it's just looking at the specific needs for a particular client and being able to match that with what they can get within the country, and then what may need to be brought with.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I might add a couple of things. One would be, you might consider packing some bed raisers. You can buy them cheaply at Walmart, and it's not a problem to ask staff to put the bed raisers underneath the bed to adjust it to a height that allows you more easily to transfer into the bed. Not all beds are movable in that way, but it is a good and fairly light solution to have in your suitcase. Another thing, if you are bringing any electronic device, I would encourage you to bring an adapter that also has a stabilizer in it. Electricity is extremely reliable here. However, you don't want, when you're traveling, to have your device charging and to have a surge and to fry your battery when you're traveling. So if you can buy an adapter that has a surge protector, that's an extremely valuable addition to your suitcase.
Those are great responses and preparation tips. Thank you so much. And it's been great interviewing both of you.
We're really thankful for the opportunity to get on it. It's with you and chat. And
yeah, of course. Hopefully we'll get to connect when I come back to Morocco, or if you guys ever get a chance to come to Washington, D.C., let me know.
Sounds great.
Did you like this video? If so, share with your friends and be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want even more resources, be sure to sign up for our email updates on our website, traipsingglobal.com. Keep learning new perspectives, keep being inclusive, because it will make the world a better place for you and for everyone else. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on another episode of the Traipsing Global on Wheels podcast hour.